The first book I actually finished was Off of My Nook, and seeing as my Nook is charging, by charging I mean I need to charge it and haven't done that yet, so I can't show you the picture off my Nook, so I'll put a picture right here. And that is Lone Wolf by Katherine Lansky. First book in her Wolves of the Beyond series follows the life of a wolf named Faulan, who is born with a splayed paw, and as a result he is cast out and left to die. But he doesn't die, and this is a middle grade work, I want to say. And it had a very traditional story arc. The problem I had is that when you're reading middle grade as someone who isn't in middle grade anymore, you need characters that make you care about the story. When you lack those, the story just doesn't work for you. I knew when I was reading this, had I read this when I was like 9 or 12 or something, I would have enjoyed this work. But at 22, like, I need characters if the story is going to be pretty boring. They just felt really distant, and I just couldn't bring myself to care about them. It's a cat. And that is basically the problem I had with this book. I ended up giving this book 2 out of 5 stars just because I found it really boring, because I was very detached from the characters. It does have a very folklore-ish feel to it though, so you might want to give it a try if you are into folklores. It's a cat breaking in. Then the second book I read was a lot bigger than the 150-page Lone Wolf. That is The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. I have to look up how to say his name because I'm pretty sure I've been pronouncing it wrong the entire time. This is the companion series to the Percy Jackson series, and it takes place after the Last Olympian is complete, so if you want to read this parallel to the Percy Jackson series, don't. This follows 3 new heroes, Jason, Piper, and Leo, and their quest. So a lot of people told me I wouldn't like the series as much as Percy Jackson, but they were wrong. I can see why people wouldn't, especially if one of the things you loved about the Percy Jackson series is the first person narration from Percy. This is told in third person. In this particular book, the chapter breakup goes Jason, Jason, Piper, Piper, Leo, Leo. This way the story is always moving forward, and the character with the most interesting story is the one being told, and you get to see how all of the characters react to one another, and you get to know their secrets when the other people don't. And I actually enjoyed that. So the book that I read in between The Lost Hero and The Son of Neptune, which is my next book, was Sloppy First by Megan McCafferty. This is the first book in the Jessica Darling series. Follows Jessica from January of 2000 to December of 2000. And each month is broken up into dates, kind of like what's going on, and the end of each month is a letter to her friend Hope. So I don't know how I feel about the characters after the end of this book. It's like watching a TV series and then you get to the end of the season and there's a cliffhanger. That's kind of like how I felt about it. So for the next book we have The Son of Neptune by Rick Riordan, and this is the second book in his Heroes of Olympus series, and one guess on who the Son of Neptune is. So this follows 3 more characters. This follows Percy, Hazel, and Frank. I believe in this book it's each hero gets 4 chapters in a row, and I can see why people would have a problem with this. Because you get 5 books inside Percy's head, and this one you don't. And it gives some pretty funny moments that were not in Percy's head this time, because normally, like, you would know when a horse starts bad-mouthing things, but because, you know, it's somebody else's chapter, you just get Percy's reaction to it. I enjoyed this book even more than The Lost Hero, and 5 out of 5 stars. Now I just need to read the next one. But yes, that was, after that, there was this one. And then we move on to the last book I finished before the BookTube Bookathon started, and that is City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. And I'm going to do this by parts because there are 3 parts to this one as well. Part 1, there was a character that just annoyed me. I hate this particular character type. Every time I see it in the story, I just get so frustrated. What? I'm almost out of time. So then we have City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. Part 1, character type. Totally hated it. Part 2, it was just so boring. I didn't care. And the entire time I was reading it, I was going, really? You're going to do that? You're going to do that? Then when I got to part 3, I'm like, okay, I just have to finish this because it's a library book. And if it wasn't a library book, it probably would have just gone back on my shelf and sat there for like a year before I picked it up again. So I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. I mean, everyone's, I wasn't impressed by this. I have City of Glass, so I'm going to keep City of Glass for another 3 weeks and probably read that, but no, I didn't like this at all. And now I'm going to review the books that I read during the bookathon and finished. So we start with the first one, Pikachu's Vacation by Tracy West. I bought this when I was 9, so this would have been a very difficult book for me to read when I was 9 because my reading level was very poor. But now I'm like, lol, this was like a 10-minute read. Then there was Mewtwo Strikes Back by Tracy West as well. Then I finished Mewtwo Strikes Back, which was also the other book I picked for the book that has been on my shelf the longest. Again, got these when the Pokemon the first movie came out in theaters. And what I said in I gave this 4 out of 5 stars as well. Obviously, it's much like Pikachu's Vacation in the sense that it is just a retelling of the movie in a book form. There were a couple problems though. The main ones I found were confusing Pidgeotto and Pidgeot, and then switching the characters from their English names to their Japanese names, because why? Other than that, the story the story basically followed the movie because it is a story told from the movie instead of the other way around, and I enjoyed it. It was like it was a trip down nostalgia lane, and yes. So that was the second one. Then we go. The next book I finished was off of my Nook, and so I will open it up to show you the cover. The Sisters Grimm, Book 7, The Ever After War, and I really enjoyed this. Then we go on to Book 8, which is the penultimate book, and it is the inside story. Sabrina, Daphne, and Puck are drawn into the Book of Ever After, which is a collection of every fairy tale that has ever been written, ever. And basically, they have to stop the leader of the Scarlet Hand, who has also disappeared into the book, but they have to do that while changing as little of the story as possible, which is really interesting. The problem I had with this book was the lack of adults in it, because throughout most of the series there's always been an adult present throughout. The problem I had with this particular book was the lack of an adult presence that has been through the entire book series to counteract the presence of a child. In this book, it's just 3 children running through a book for the majority of it, and for that reason I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because, like I said, it lacked the adult presence, but I did enjoy it. And then we move on to the final book, which is The Council of Mirrors, which you start to see the start of Sabrina's journal, because every Grimm you find out in the first book has kept a journal, and Sabrina hasn't been writing in one. So she starts writing one in this book, so you get to see her first person perspective, as well as the third person, so you get to see her first person perspective as well as the third person perspective that follows her around. This is my favorite book in the series. I don't know what to say other than that. And then the ending was good, and then you get to the epilogue, and it made it even better. And then you get to the epilogue of the epilogue, and I was like, oh my god, I want more. If there's ever a sequel to this series, I will read it because this series was so much fun and I enjoyed it so much. Alright, so right now I'm going to go through all of the books that I read after the BookTube Bookathon ended, or all the ones that I finished afterward, which is this pile right here. So we're just gonna flip it over and start with the one I finished the longest ago, as my cameras fall. Yeah, my books fall, hit the camera. So we have Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which I was almost done with by the time the BookTube Bookathon ended, just wasn't far enough. And what can I say? It's Harry Potter. Because after the BookTube Bookathon, I was like, yeah, we're gonna continue reading short stuff with manga. So I have a post-it note right here that tells me I read volume 9 online because volume 9 wasn't at the library. And then I read volumes 10 and 11, and then later on I read volume 12. So there's only 3 more volumes of this, and I figured I'd just review it then because, yeah, like the new, and then we go into the new manga that I started. I didn't realize this one was that long when I picked it up, but this is The Prince of Tennis by Takeshi Konomi. This is The Prince of Tennis by Takeshi Konomi, who is a manga artist, author. Yeah, so this is about a tennis player in middle school, and I will have a manga first impression going up soon. I've already filmed it, I just have to edit it. It's this whole editing thing, yeah. But I will have one of this up. I will say that it's really good as long as you like tennis. If you hate tennis, you'll hate this. But this is probably the most realistic without being realistic middle school manga that I've read. And there are 42 volumes in it, so I still have a ways to go. Which is a joke from the manga / anime, because I actually started watching the anime for this. But then we get on to the actual stuff, the actual books, not like the manga and the short stuff. The next one that I finished was this thing. This is the reason I didn't finish one of my TBR books this month. Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. I'm thinking about doing a discussion video on it, or at least talking about it, because I actually really enjoyed this. I've only actually seen the first 2 episodes of the TV show, and that was only after I started reading. So, yeah, book first. I actually, when I was about 300 pages into it, and then I just read the rest over the span of 2 days, because I'm like, this is so good. But that really, reading through this in 2 days really exhausted me out. It's definitely a lot more adult than I'm used to reading, graphically anyway. But I did really enjoy this, and I did order A Clash of Kings. Hopefully it will come in the mail at some point. And then the final 2 books I read during the month were on my TBR. Titus Andronicus by William Shakespeare, which was my Nook choice of the month. This was the audiobook that I picked for the BookTube Bookathon. I listened to like 3 acts during the Bookathon, 2 acts maybe, and then I just listened to the rest of it because it's a play and plays are meant to be seen and heard as opposed to read. I will have to say this is not one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. From all of the hype that I heard about it from my friends who took my Shakespeare course with me, I was expecting a lot more, and honestly something that seemed a lot bloodier and less boring. I found this play to be very boring. I have heard that there is a really good version of this with Anthony Hopkins, a movie, so I might check that out because maybe seeing it will make me think it's better. But other than that, this was pretty average for me. Close to the average, not on the scale of Hamlet or The Taming of the Shrew, which are 2 of my favorite Shakespeare plays. This is closer to A Midsummer Night's Dream, but not as bad as Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet is one of only 5 works that I've ever given a 1-star rating. Yeah, so yeah, we have that. And then we get to the final book that I finished in July, which I finished a couple hours before July actually ended, and that was this one, Heroes at Odds by Maura J. Moore. This is the 6th book in our Heroes series. I really enjoyed the first 2 books in this series. They are like 2 of my favorite books of all time, Resenting the Hero and The Hero Strikes Back. Then 3, 4, 5, and this one 6, they've slowly been going downhill. Like, it's a good book, but I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite stories of all time. And honestly, sometimes I felt this book dragged, and I feel like the character has digressed from who she was in book 1 to being a petty teenager when she's in her 20s, like late 20s, early 30s, somewhere around that area, to an end, but it's still entertaining, and all great things must come to an end, but it's still really good. And maybe one day one of the books in the series will equal the level of awesome that the first 2 books had. So yeah, that is everything I read in July. Now time for my tallier thingy. So I have myself down reading for July: Lone Wolf by Katherine Lansky, The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan, Sloppy First by Megan McCafferty, The Son of Neptune by Rick Riordan, The City of Ashes, which is the 2nd book in the Mortal Instrument series by Cassandra Clare, Pikachu's Vacation and Mewtwo Strikes Back by Tracy West, The Ever After War, The Inside Story and the Council of Mirrors, all by Michael Buckley, thus completing the Grimm sisters stories. Then D and Angel 9 through 12, The Prince of Tennis 1 and 2, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Game of Thrones, Titus Andronicus, and Heroes at Odds. Yeah, so until that is, I have myself at 81 through 99, 100. So I've read, looks like 20 books this month, including the manga and the short stories. Yeah. Till next time. TTYL.